Hey friends, Elizabeth here from Plant-Based Bride, back again with another video, and today I am super excited to share with you my November plan with me in my bullet journal. Today's video is kindly sponsored by Audible. I'll talk about them in a little bit, but for now, let's jump right into the setup because, y'all, this theme took me way more hours than expected. I am really happy with how it turned out, but it was a time-consuming one, so we have no time to waste. Let's get into the setup. This month's theme is sort of based on a story that I was daydreaming about the other day. Our protagonists are two little baby foxes who live together in a cozy cabin in the woods. And all of the art in the setup, all of the paintings are based on the area they live in or inside their house. For the cover page, I had this concept where I wanted to have a bit of an interactive element, where I would have a window that could flip back and forth to either show the interior scene, where you could look out the window to see what was outside, or flipped the other way, you were outside looking in to this warm, cozy scene. I'm creating two paintings, the inside of this little cabin and the outside, and then in the center, I'm creating the window that can flip back and forth. Starting with a painting of the interior scene, and I'm using my Winsor & Newton gouache and watercolor paints for this. As always, I'll link all of my supplies in the description box down below, so if you're looking for the specific paints that I used, they're all listed down there. I used washi tape to tape out the shape of this painting, and I wanted something a little more interesting than a basic rectangle, so I created a rectangle along the bottom, and then the top I created a nice smooth curve. This painting took me quite a while to make, a lot longer than expected, but I'm really happy with how it turned out and I love all of the little details. So for this one, I'm starting with basic colors, the background, and then going in and adding more and more details. So starting with a wash of color to be the background, a wash of color on the floor, and the basic shape of this cozy armchair. Once those layers were dry, I went in with a variety of colors to paint 5 bajillion books. As I was doing this, I realized it would have been way easier to have one plain wall and a small bookcase, but I'd already committed to creating full walls of bookcases, and it just felt more cozy, so I committed to it. As I mentioned, I'm starting with the basic shapes. So in the case of the books, basic rectangles, indications of where the pages are. And once those are dry, I'll go back in and add some more details to make them look a little more, not so much realistic because this is sort of a cartoony style, but just more detailed, I guess. Now the paintings I did in this setup are quite intensive. I used a lot of paint and I worked the page quite a bit. So I will recommend, as I always do, that you're cautious with how much water you use, especially if you're not working on watercolor paper. As you'll know, I'm using my Archer & Olive collab notebook that I designed with them. This is the Cloth Sunrise notebook in B5, which is actually going to be re-released next week. So if they sold out before you could get your hands on them and you've been hoping to get one for yourself, go follow me on Instagram. That is where you can get the most up-to-date info, and those will be re-releasing, but it's quite a small quantity. So if you've been wanting to get this notebook, this is your chance, but you have to act fast because there's not a lot. But anyway, getting sidetracked, Archer & Olive has amazing paper in their notebooks. It's 160 GSM, so it's really nice and thick, and I find it can handle a lot of pigment and a lot of water, but there is still a limit, and if you use way too much water, if you really pool the water on the page, it will eventually cause the integrity of the paper to be compromised, and you might end up with either significant warping or even some bleed through. So definitely err on the side of caution, err on the side of a drier brush. You can always add a little more water to help smooth out the pigment or move things around if you need to, but it's really hard to fix if you go in with too much water to start. With the foxes, I'm using the same technique, starting with the very basic colors and shapes, and then going in to add more details. So I'm using a very fine brush and some black paint to add details to their ears, to add their eyes, noses, and details to their paws. I'm also adding all of the details on the books, and for this I'm using a bit of a watered down dark brown paint, and I'm going in and adding lines on the spine, outlines for the edges of the covers, as well as little scribbles to indicate titles written along the spine. Once everything was dry, I could remove the washi tape, which is the most satisfying thing in the world. You can't convince me otherwise. I'm also adding a simple monoline header along the bottom using one of my Sakura Micron fine liners. Now it's time to work on the interactive window portion. So for this, I'm using one of my pieces of tea-stained paper. I'll link the tutorial where I show how I make these in the cards and in the description box down below. But I'm using this just for a nice, neutral, slightly textured feel for this interior wall. So I'm gluing this on one side of the page and then using my tiny, super sharp scissors to puncture a hole through the center so I can cut out this rectangle that will become the window. Next, I'm pulling out my collection of construction paper, which is just a heavier weight paper, and I'm using some black paper to cut 2 thin strips to glue down to make it look like this window has 4 panes. Once I have those glued down, I'm taking some dark brown construction paper and cutting a rectangle slightly larger than the rectangle I cut in the page and gluing that down as well. I wanted to put that center cross in the window first so that I could sandwich it between the page and the construction paper to hopefully make it more secure so it won't fall off. Then I cut 8 slightly wider strips to create the frame of the window on both sides. Then it was time for the final details on the inside of the window, and for this I wanted to create curtains. So I was recently sent the Maple Dreams collection by Notebook Therapy, which if you haven't checked it out, please do. It is absolutely stunning. I'll actually be doing a giveaway with them for the collection very soon on my Instagram, so again, go follow me there if you want to be able to win some items from this collection. But other than the notebooks, which are absolutely stunning, my favorite thing in this collection are these specialty papers. So I decided to use one of these little sheets to create some textured curtains. I'm just cutting out a very basic curtain shape here and gluing them down, and then using a dark brown acrylograph to create the curtain rod and a lighter tan acrylograph to create little tiebacks for the curtains. This is so simple and quick to do, but it adds so much more detail to this interior scene, both when the window is this way and also when you flip the window the other way. It adds a little bit of softness to the inside of the window. You can see just the edge of the curtains, and it really adds to that cozy framing of that interior scene. So now it's time to move on to the other side, which is going to be our view of the exterior landscape. So again, I'm starting by painting all of the background layers, the larger areas, general shapes, and then once all of those are dry, I'll be able to go in and add all the details. Now, all of the trees I'm painting in this setup are inspired by an amazing artist who can be found on Instagram. Their username is Iraville, and they create these beautiful, sort of semi-abstract, very whimsical paintings of trees, and I came across their art and just thought they were so adorable and wanted to try my hand at this style. So all of these trees are inspired by Iraville. Go check them out. Their art is amazing, and they're actually pretty simple to do. So all you have to do is start with a big blob in a vaguely tree-like shape, and once the blob is dry, you go back in with either white or maybe a dark brown, and you create the trunk and branches on top. This creates a very whimsical, cartoony, sort of abstract feel, and I just think it's really fun and quite easy to do. So thank you, Iraville, for inspiring this. It was so much fun to paint trees this way. While I continue to work on this painting, I think it's time I talk to you about today's video's sponsor, Audible. Y'all know I am an audiobook fiend. The majority of my yearly reads are consumed via audiobook, and I will always adore the age-old tradition of verbal storytelling. Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment all in one place. At Audible, you can find the largest selection of audiobooks, literally thousands of titles from bestsellers to new releases, celebrity memoirs, and more. Every month, Audible members get one free audiobook and full access to the Plus catalog, which allows you to listen to popular audiobooks, original entertainment, and podcasts, including ad-free versions of your favorite shows and exclusive series. You'll also find guided fitness, meditation, and sleep tracks for use in your self-care routine, all available to download and stream so you can listen anywhere on any device. I listened to Piranesi by Susanna Clarke while filming this video and was absolutely blown away, both by the story itself and by the narration. As a theater school graduate, I tend to be pretty picky about voice acting in audiobooks, but the narrator did an incredible job with conveying the rhythmic, eerie, and starkly beautiful quality of this tale while bringing so much raw vulnerability and humanity to what would otherwise likely be a somewhat distant or cold protagonist. I would highly, highly recommend you give it a listen. With Audible, you can always find the perfect title for whatever you're doing, wherever you're going, or whatever you're feeling. And with everything you love to listen to all in one app, Audible Plus is your playlist for life. Thank you so much to Audible for sponsoring this video. New Audible members get a 30-day free trial. Visit audible.com/plantbased or text plantbased to 500-500 to try Audible today. That's audible.com/plantbased or text plant-based to 500-500 for your 30-day free trial. Thank you again to Audible for sponsoring this video, and now, as you can see, I've moved on to our next spread. So let's talk about it. Here we have my monthly calendar on the left side and my first of 2 quote pages on the right. For our first quote, I chose, "Autumn exists to remind us that things must end to begin again." And for this quote, I just had to use another sheet of this textured paper. I just cannot get over how pretty it is. Something about textured paper with like seeds and pressed plants in it. Just, I don't know, it's pure joy. Can you tell I'm excited? And for my calendar, keeping it super simple, very practical, and leaving space at the bottom to create a little painting. So here I'm just creating a painting of a segment of this forest, again, using the same technique inspired by Iraville. So I'm starting by painting a bunch of blobs. And once those blobs are dry, going in and adding our details, trunks and branches, trying to have a pretty even mix between white trunks and branches and brown trunks and branches. The trees with the white trunks and branches are meant to be birch trees, which are my favorite type of tree. If you have a favorite type of tree, let me know in the comments down below. Let's just gush about how awesome trees are. I'm up for it if you are. And to make them look more like birch trees, once that white is dry, I'm going in with my tiny brush and some brown to add little horizontal lines, mostly from the outside of the trunk, coming towards the center but not crossing the whole trunk in an irregular pattern all the way up, and on some of the thicker branches as well. And once I had those details in, I felt like this was missing a little something and decided to go in and add some falling leaves around these trees. And for this, I just created tiny little semicircles very loosely, which is also how I tend to draw confetti. And now that I think about it, fall leaves are kind of like nature's confetti. It's pretty apt. Now that that painting is finished and dry, it's time to cut my rolling weeklies. If you're unfamiliar with the rolling weekly layout, I will shout from the rooftops, it is the best weekly you could ever use, in my humble opinion. I'll link my video explaining it in great detail in both the cards and the description box if you want to learn more. But while I work on cutting all of these spreads, I want to share some fall facts with you all, because as you know, we love facts on this channel. Starting with the word fall itself, you may have been able to deduce that the word fall comes from the falling of the leaves. But while Americans typically refer to this time of year as fall, the British usually use the word autumn. And here in Canada, as always, we're caught between the two, and we tend to fluctuate between using both fall and autumn. Both of these terms date back to the 16th century, and before that, this time of year was called harvest. Fall was called harvest because of the harvest moon that occurs when the full moon is closest to the autumn equinox. Before man-made lighting, this moonlight was essential to a prosperous harvest. I'm really curious to know if you tend to use fall more or autumn more when you talk about this time of year. Let me know in the comments down below and where you live in the world so I can see if there's some sort of pattern here. My absolute favorite thing about autumn is the changing of the leaves. Fall leaf colors are caused by pigments in the leaves, and different kinds of trees produce different pigments. These pigments always exist in the leaves, but they're overpowered by the abundance of green from chlorophyll. The amount of chlorophyll starts to decrease as the sun weakens and the days grow shorter, allowing that green color to fade, which in turn allows the natural, vibrant colors of the leaves to be visible to the human eye. So really, leaves are naturally red, yellow, orange, and purple. The green is just so dominant for most of the year that it's all we can see. When you notice that leaves are purple and red, that's caused by the anthocyanins pigment, which is only produced in the fall when sugars are trapped in the leaves. Lots of dry weather and sunlight will lead to more sugar in the leaves, meaning the leaves will be brighter red. Freezing, meanwhile, stops the process of making red pigments. If you look forward to fall foliage every year as much as I do, then please do your part to help combat climate change. Scientists believe that global warming is going to ruin fall foliage and may have started already. Leaf colors are highly affected by temperature, light, and water supply. If the temperatures remain too warm, that delays the leaves from showing their true colors. So we've talked about why leaves change color, but let's talk about why they fall off the trees. As their exposure to light decreases in the fall, deciduous trees start to produce a hormone called ethylene that boosts the growth of a type of cell called abscission cells between the stem and the leaf. Abscission has the same root as the word scissors, and they're designed, like scissors, to cut the leaf off of the stem. Every leaf on these deciduous trees develops a thin, bumpy line of these cells that pushes the leaf bit by bit away from the stem, eventually making them so loose that the lightest gust of wind can blow them off. Evergreen trees stay green all year round because their needles are coated in a wax that protects them from freezing. As you can see, this time around, not only did I cut tabs along the side of my weeklies to make it easier to flip between them, but I also cut along the bottom of all my weeklies. And the reason for this is probably pretty clear already. I wanted to be able to see my two little paintings along the bottom of each side, no matter which weekly I was on. This is something that never occurred to me before, but recently over on Instagram, I've been seeing a lot of bullet journalists creating cutouts and Dutch doors, little windows, and it's just such a great idea, so I thought I would try my hand at it this time around. Now it's time to work on our final paintings. On this last page, I'm creating a sort of generally round painting at the top, and then a little painting at the bottom, which will be visible from my weeklies or my monthly calendar. On the left side, I'm going to be stamping out my second quote of the month. I hope you enjoyed these facts as much as I did. Please let me know in the comments down below your thoughts on the facts shared, your favorite type of tree, all the things. Or if you don't know what to say, just leave a tree emoji down there so that I know that you enjoy the facts and want them to keep on coming. The painting up top is an outside look at the fox's cabin. So again, I'm starting with all of my bigger shapes, all of my tree blobs, and then working on details once that first layer is dry. At the bottom, I'm creating a little painting of our two foxes out playing in the forest. This scene of one fox hiding in a fallen log and the other fox about to jump in to catch them makes me think of that scene in Fox and the Hound, and that movie always makes me very emotional, so let's stop talking about it. The second and final quote I chose for this setup was, "Wild is the music of the autumnal winds amongst the faded woods." So evocative of the musical quality that comes along with crunching leaves underfoot and falling leaves floating on the breeze. And that's it for this setup. Before I show you the final full flip through, I want to remind you about today's video sponsor, Audible. Make sure to go to audible.com/plantbased or text plantbased to 500 500 for a 30-day free trial. It's so worth it. Audible is amazing. And now the final flip through, starting with our little interactive cover page. I love how this turned out. I love the interior scene looking out at the landscape and then being outside looking in on their adorable little cozy library. I also really love that I tried this cutaway so I can see my little paintings no matter where I am in my weeklies. I can't believe I never thought of this before, and as long as I still have enough space in my weeklies, which we will see, I think I should still have enough room, then I might start doing this a lot more often, because it's always a little sad to spend a really long time on creating some art that you then only see in brief glimpses when you flip back to your monthly calendar or happen to flip to the final page of a setup. I also really love this final page where you can see 3 paintings at once and a quote page. Everything is so cozy, and as I mentioned, I just really love this style of trees inspired by Iredale. They're just so whimsical and cute. And that's it for this video. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, leave some sort of fall emoji down below, maybe the falling leaves or a jack-o'-lantern. Is there a fox emoji? If there's a fox emoji, leave that down below. If there's not, there should be. I want to take a moment to thank my patrons for their support. Extra special thanks to our newest patrons, Kirsty, Diane, Candace, Lauren, Ashley, Autumn Lynn. Autumn Lynn, you have the perfect name for this setup. Thank you for being a patron. Tracy, and Cian. Welcome all of you to the squad. We are so excited to have you. If you at home want to join the squad, feel free. There's a link in the card and in the description box down below. Another little reminder that there will be a small little relaunch of my Archer and Olive collab next week. So go follow me on Instagram so you can hear as soon as things go live, especially if you missed out on this orange sunrise cloth notebook in B5. If you wanted it and didn't get it, this is your chance. But as I said, quantities are quite limited, so go follow me there so you don't miss out. Or alternatively, if you want to be notified when I'm doing my Notebook Therapy Maple Dreams giveaway, Instagram is the place to be. There's a link in the description box. Thank you again for watching this video. I hope you are all so well, and I'll see you very soon in my next one. Bye, friends.